Just a heads up before you go any further, this video will have some spoilers. So if you haven't watched the film yet, then pause the video, watch it later. Or don't, just continue on watching because I suspect that after you've heard my review, you probably won't want to see it. Ho, ho, ho. It's almost Christmas time and the big Christmas movie that they were expecting it to be anyway was Mortal Engines, which I went to see today. Everything you've heard about it is pretty much correct. It is not very good at all. I think I'm maybe being a bit too harsh. It was interesting, I did enjoy it to a certain degree, but it just feels like a massive missed opportunity. It really over-promises and then under-delivers, based on the trailers and everything like that. I just think the concept was really good, but executed as a film, it just does not do it very well at all, and it just ended up being a complete disappointment. So Mortal Engines was directed by Christian Rivers and produced by Peter Jackson's company. It stars Robert Sheehan, Hera Helma's daughter, Hugo Weaving, Stephen Lang, Ronan Raftery, Jihai, I think that's how you pronounce it, and Layla George D'Onofrio, as well as a few other people. So it's a pretty unknown cast, really, to be fair, apart from Hugo Weaving, who, of course, is really huge. Everybody will recognise him from something. So I'll start off on a positive light because a lot of this video is going to be me shitting on this film. So let's just start off with the things that I liked. So your main character is a girl called Hester Shaw, who was played by Hera Helmer's daughter. She's about the only character in the film that I actually did like. Her motivations make sense. It's acted very well by the actor. She's portrayed really, really well. Her backstory is really delved into. Her character, motivations and everything make complete sense. She has a proper character arc, which starts at the beginning and goes all the way through to the end, and it has a really satisfying ending. So her story, the way she's portrayed, everything about her was actually really well done, and I really enjoyed her performance. She definitely changes and grows as the story goes on, and she's probably about the only character in the film that really does do that. I also really, really like all the technological fantasy stuff. It's almost steampunk. It's like old school mechanics, but bigger and grander. The idea of whole cities on wheels just fighting in the middle of fields and having big wars with each other is a really cool concept, and there's so many amazing things that you could do with that. It's just a real shame that the film completely and utterly fails to deliver on any of the promises that has. It really, really is a shame. But outside of that, though, the graphics, all the special effects and all that stuff is done really well. It's just a shame it's really all kind of wasted. Now for the stuff I didn't like. Let's start with every other character. You can pretty much tell that every other character was played by an actor who has very little experience, especially in big budget movies. At least all the characters that are really that important to the plot, because they're poor. They're either overacted or underacted, and it's just really bad. The only one with any real experience that plays a major role is Hugo Weaving, and his performance is definitely passable. But to expect anything less out of him at this point would be bad. You would expect him to perform at least well enough, even if he's given no material to work with, because he is an incredibly experienced and an incredibly talented actor. To be frank, anything less from him would be a disgrace. Whether these shortcomings are because of the actors themselves or just because they're given very little to work with is hard to say. The one that plays Hugo Weaving's daughter, that character shows up at the beginning and then she shows up at the end, and she plays a really pivotal role in how the ending takes place. But you could be forgiven if at that point when she does show up you've completely forgotten what her name is, because her appearances throughout the film are sporadic and she really doesn't have much to do. She really doesn't have any character development at all. She pretty much just, halfway through the film, she finds out that her dad is a cunt, which he is, and then she just, boom, just turns on him. On a dime, just like that. Right, okay, I don't like him anymore, he's not my dad. Boom. There's no conflict there. Oh, should I help my dad? Should I not help my dad? Oh, I love you, but I don't love you. There's none of that. It's basically just fuck you, you're a bad guy, I'm out of here. And it's just crap. It is really, really, really crap character development. You just don't care about the characters at all. Then you've got the character of Tom, played by Robert Sheehan, who just feels really lazily written. He follows Hester around for no other reason than because he has to. I think they kind of have there's a bit of a love story there between them, but it doesn't really get developed a lot. He's pretty much just in the middle of it. And, you know, his backstory is kind of explained, but also kind of not. And yeah, he's just got the image of somebody who just is just there to be there, because he really isn't important. And his actual role in the plot is so small that you could take him out and it wouldn't really make a difference. The thing that got me about it was that it's explained in the film that he was supposed to become an aviator, you know, someone who flies planes or whatever. And then, because his parents died, he decided not to do that and become a historian instead. Why his parents dying would make a difference to the decision to become an aviator, I don't get. It baffles me why that would matter. They could probably come up with a lot of different reasons for why and explain that into the film, but they don't. They just say that that's the reason. They don't explain why that's the reason. And it just makes it feel lazy and doesn't feel like a real person. It feels like he's just there to serve the plot, you know, because they need somebody to know about the history of what's going on in order to further the plot along so that it makes sense. Because without him there and telling you the historical stuff, it would be a bit more confusing. But other than that, he really doesn't serve much apart from being a plot device. And that's pretty much the way most of the characters feel. You know, they just feel like they're there to serve the plot and not to actually offer anything interesting. You know, none of the characters have interesting stories, interesting backstories, interesting lives, or interesting relationships. They're not even particularly cool. You know, you've got this Asian lady, Neo, that sort of shows up out of nowhere and starts beating people up. You know, she beats a couple of guys up, and then she flies a plane and helps them escape. And apart from that, she doesn't really have any other character development. She's just a bit boring, and she's just there to look cool. And she has a showdown with Hugo Weaving at the end of the film, and there's not really any good reason for why those two people in particular should hate each other. Because, yeah, of course, there is the thing between, you know, the mortal engines, the guys on the cities on the wheels they don't like the people who live in actual cities that are on the ground. For some reason, there's a hatred there. And she's on one side, he's on one side. But apart from that, there's no real reason why those two should, you know, personally hate each other, but they do for some reason. And yeah, that doesn't make any sense because none of it's ever explained. Our main characters do end up getting chased by this Terminator-style guy called Shrike. And I have to say, you know, his character, while confusing at first, they do go into him quite a bit and, you know, discuss his backstory and everything. And he actually becomes really, really interesting. You know, he's actually tied into Hester's story. And hers is probably the only real interesting story of the whole film. And because he's tied into that quite a lot, his story becomes really, really interesting. And you want to learn more about him because he's like a robot, he's like an android or something, but it's like somebody else's mind was implanted into the robot, and the robot it's not indestructible, but it's pretty, you know, it's like a Terminator. And but they don't go into why he is an android or anything like that, or how that happened. And, you know, but in all of his stories explained through flashbacks, which isn't a great way of doing it, but it does become interesting. And just as it's getting to the point where his story really does become really good, and him and Esther confront each other, he dies. And, you know, I'm sorry to make a spoiler like that, but he just dies. And, you know, he's completely lifted from the story, which just means that the only interesting part of the story up until that point between the characters is completely removed. And it just leaves the rest of the film just like, can this just end now, please? Because this is boring. You know, the only thing that was important is over. And it just made it very, very disappointing for me. Moving on from the characters, let's just discuss the plot. This couldn't be more cookie cutter if they tried. It pretty much completely fails to deliver on all the carnage that was promised from the trailers. The film opens on London, which is a massive city on wheels, chasing down all these little towns, right? There's like 3 or 4 little towns, and they're chasing them down and trying to capture them so they can steal all their resources. And there's this whole thing, this whole chase scene, which is great. It's so much fun. You know, everything's going crazy. You've got all these mad machines, and then they manage to capture one. And it is amazing because it really sets you up for the rest of the movie. It makes you think, oh yes, if this is, you know, the start of the movie, what's coming next? And then that's where it just completely falls flat. They pump you right up for more fighty sitting action, and it just never comes. Pretty much your characters, your human characters, and of course the Terminator guy, bounce from place to place, talking a lot of crap, going from one place to another, and then it eventually ends up with London coming face to face in the final battle to destroy a wall. No joke. They literally fight a wall. Your main bad guy, whose only motivation is that he likes to be powerful, you know, there's no real good reason behind what he's doing, constructs a big giant weapon, like an atomic bomb type weapon, and decides to go and fight a wall. It is so shit. Like, you want a big clash on the field between this big city and this other big fucking city, and they're all driving around and people are jumping from city to city, fighting and having sword fights and shooting each other and stuff like that. But no. London comes along, the wall's there, it stops, and it shoots the wall. And sure, some people from the wall come out in planes and, you know, attack London, but that's it. That's our final set piece. 2 things standing miles away from each other, shooting a big laser beam, and that's it. What a load of utter fucking garbage. We get to see lots of big vehicles. You know, there's a big Caterpillar vehicle at one point in the film. You know, there's other sort of city car things driving around. But outside of the first 10 minutes, we don't see any of them clashing. It's ridiculous. You know, you get to see the characters are, you know, they'll run around. They need to escape, so they'll climb up some of the cities and use them for their set pieces and jumping around. But nothing else happens. It's so shit. There's like a 5-minute plane fight scene at the end, but it's just like a couple of planes coming in and shooting at London. You know, it's not like planes fighting planes. It's not like a space battle or anything like that. It boggles my mind how they just took this amazing concept with so much potential and just utterly failed to deliver on it. They just did nothing with it. It's mad. It is really, really mad. This had the potential to be so much more than it ended up being. All we needed was for them to develop a few more of the characters so that we felt like we cared about them, and take the interesting parts of the concept and really lean on them hard. But it just went the complete opposite direction. It focused on all the boring parts, you know, it focused on stuff which you just get in any standard movie, with people just playing fights, which is crap, and you just end up not caring about any of the characters because none of them have any real personalities, they don't have any real stories, and by the end of it you're just kind of like, will I ever remember what actually happened here? No. All you'll be left with is the feeling that I should never watch this again. And one of the things that really annoyed me about the film is that near the beginning they try to make a minion joke. You know, they have some minion statues and they say, oh no, it's an old ancient American deity. And then there's a joke about Twinkies later on, which fall completely flat. One, because they're not funny jokes. Minions have never been funny. And also because they just don't fit in with the tone of the film. I mean, I'm all for bringing a bit of humour into your films or whatever, but those are literally like the only 2 jokes throughout the whole film, and they just do not fit at all. They also feel like they were thrown in there outside of the books. I've never read the books. I don't know anything about the books. Maybe those books have those same jokes in it. I don't know. But if they feel like they were thrown in by someone who was trying to be hilarious, but only, you know, your mum would find it funny. Sorry, mum. Overall, it just ends up being a huge disappointment. All the potential of the film is completely ignored, and they end up just going with something that is bland and safe and boring. If I was to compare this to a vehicle, I would have to say it's like a burnt out camper van. You know, it had all the promise of family fun and excitement, but yeah, it didn't. It ended up being shit, and so we just set it on fire and said, fuck it. Well, that's been my review of Mortal Engines. I really hope you don't go and see it. Wait till it comes out on Sky Cinema if you're in the UK, or, you know, anywhere where it's going to be free, because it is crap. It is really not. It's not even worth watching if you can get it for free, to be honest. It's completely wasted potential. It was executed poorly, and it's just not worth anybody's time, quite frankly. And I feel sorry for some of the actors in this, because Hugo Weaving is really good, and the one that played Hester Shaw was also really, really good. I think she's probably got quite a good career ahead of her, but overall, yeah, it wasn't worth watching. I hope this video has been worth watching. So if you have watched all the way to the end, I do thank you. I really appreciate it. 3 reviews in 1 week, which is a lot for me. So thanks again. I hope you hit that like button. Leave a comment about how you felt the movie was. You know, if you've seen it yourself, or if you have any, you know, other thoughts to add on to mine. And subscribe to the channel, of course. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook. You know, I post on those all the time as well. And yeah, just, you know what to do. Ring the bell for notifications and all that jazz. Well, thanks again. I will catch you guys later. If I don't upload again before then, I hope you guys have yourselves a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Speak to you soon. Booyah, kasha.